We're going to go, Miss Bofi is on her way into the room, so we will go ahead and call the meeting of the Louisiana State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education to order, and we will begin with a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Dr. Beebe?
Present.
Dr. Beebe is present. Ms. Bofi is on her way. Ms. Bofi is present. Ms. Bradford?
Here.
Ms. Bradford is present. Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Mr. Garvey is present. Mr. Guillot is absent. Ms. Hill?
Present.
Ms. Hill is present. Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Lee is present. Dr. Moranti?
Present.
Dr. Moranti is present. Ms. Orange Jones?
Present.
Ms. Orange Jones is present. Mr. Romer?
Here.
Mr. Romer is present. And Ms. Smith is absent. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, and thank you, members, for being here, and thank you, members of the audience. I will remind you, if you would like to speak today on an item, we do have cards that we'd like you to fill out with your name and agenda item on there, please. I'd like to invite two students who are, I know the superintendent's going to mention them in his report, but we have two outstanding students here today. I would like to invite them both to come forward, one to give the pledge, which will be done by Adele Rahman, and the other will be done, the prayer will be given by Celeste Runnels, both of whom are seniors at Baton Rouge Magnet here in Baton Rouge, obviously, and I'll leave the rest to the superintendent. So if everyone would please stand for the pledge and the prayer. You can go prayer first, and then we'll do the pledge.
Heavenly Father, we pray that you will give us your gift of knowledge, that we might always make the best decisions for the good of all the school children in Louisiana. We pray that you give us the wisdom to know and define our tasks, the strength to build and refine our educational goals, and the courage to persevere as necessary. We ask for your direction that we might make unselfish decisions for those we serve. We pray that all who are assembled here have a safe journey home. We thank you for all your past and future blessings. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to both of you, and we look forward to recognizing you shortly. I'd like to move next to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion for approval of the agenda. There is a second. Is there any objection to approval of the agenda? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Item number 3, approval of the minutes of the October 15 meeting.
There's a motion and a second for approval of the minutes. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Next item is item 4, election of board officers. 4.1, consideration of election of board officers for 2015.
Ms. Bradford?
I'd like to move that our slate of officers continue. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
I'd like to second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Item 5, report by the State Superintendent of Education.
Thank you. Members, just briefly, first of all, I want to encourage you and hope that you will attend our policy forum on educator preparation if you're going to be able to stick around. It's at 1 o'clock. You never quite know how to schedule a meeting when it's scheduled after a BESE meeting because, you know, if we go very quickly, then you're going to be very disappointed. On the other hand, if we go too long, you'll be very disappointed. So maybe we can, Mr. President, maybe we can get this.
I've got it all under control.
Right, good, good.
But I think it'd be okay if it goes fast.
Okay.
Don't go slow on purpose.
No judgments.
Just to
no
drag
judgments,
it out.
Mr. Vice President. But I would say this, that this is part of a kind of rolling process of making policy that we are doing over multiple years. And the way that we're doing it is we've got 7 pilots. Hopefully next year that'll be roughly 20 who have partnered with institutions of higher education or nonprofits to develop in-school apprentice-based teacher preparation programs where the last year of the undergraduate experience, the teacher is a full-time employee within the school and is being mentored by a master teacher and is being overseen by not just the college but also the principal of the school who will ultimately hopefully hire them. we've got to get beyond the time when we put someone in the classroom and wonder whether or not they're effective or ineffective, when we've been spending TOPS and state dollars to educate them as teachers for 4 years prior to. And that's what this policy forum is about. This policy forum is not about the practitioner side of it, it's about the BESE side of it, it's about the legislator side of it, it's about the policy aspect of it. We're doing 3 of these forums over the next year. I hope you'll come. The pilot leaders will be there today to talk about it, and that's really going to be the most relevant part of today's session. So I hope you'll be able to stick around. It's here in this building. Second, as you know, under your leadership, advanced placement in Louisiana has been a real priority. And I just want to read some statistics to you just so you have a sense of this. In 2012, 4,000 students passed an AP test in Louisiana. This year, 6,500 students passed an AP test in Louisiana. And, you know, people will say that, well, that's this group or that's that group. Actually, we saw a 33% increase in African American and low income test passage and participation in advanced placement coursework this year, and feel fantastic about what our schools are doing in this area. And the reason that this is so important is that it really is the highest level of student work, the most advanced, rigorous measurement of student work that our kids are doing. It's not the be-all, end-all, it's not everything, but it signifies when a student is really, truly prepared him or herself for college. And I think one thing we don't do enough of, we talk so much here about struggling students. We talk so much here about students who are schools that are having a hard time. Should this school that's been labeled an F continue to exist? Do we need to have interventions in this environment? What we don't talk about enough is people who have really reached the pinnacle of our education system. And I think AP reflects that. I think that Baton Rouge Magnet High reflects that. And I think that 2 of its students reflect it. And I want to talk briefly about those students and then honor them here today because they've been honored by the national organization, the College Board. The College Board selects in every state 2 advanced placement scholars. They are state scholars in every state that represent the pinnacle of academic achievement with respect to advanced placement, and both of them happen to be today from Baton Rouge Magnet High. To that purpose, I want to first recognize Nanette McCann. Nanette, if you could just raise your hand and recognize yourself. Nanette is the principal of Baton Rouge Magnet High, and I appreciate, it's not a very long trip, but nevertheless, I appreciate you coming to BESE with your students and with some of your teachers. And if you're also an educator or other staff at Baton Rouge Magnet High, would you just raise your hand just so we can recognize you as well? Thank you all so much for being here. Now, what I'm about to share with you is information that might fire you up so much that we might just have to cancel the meeting. So I'm about to walk this through. There are 2 students. One is Sierra Runnels. Sierra is not able to be here today because Sierra is a freshman at the University of Georgia and was a national merit finalist. But her sister Celeste, whom you heard from earlier, is here today. And Celeste, as I understand it, your resume is pretty impressive in and of itself, so I'm going to mention that as well. Celeste, I believe, has passed, in fact, 12 advanced placement tests already to date and is still just in her senior year. Sierra took 18 and scored a 5, which is the highest score on all but one of them, on which I believe she got a 4. So, you know, everybody makes mistakes. But, you know, what can I say? That meaning that she scored the highest number of advanced placement test passages at the highest level of any student in our state and among the highest in the nation. Certainly a good reason for attending such a prestigious school as the University of Georgia. We also have with us today Adele Rahman. Adele, if you could raise your hand and be recognized, and we'll call you up in just 1 second. Adele has taken through his 11th grade year 15 AP examinations. This year he is a senior, and he'll have the opportunity to take more this spring. Of the 15 that he's already taken as a junior, he got a 5 on all but 2. Wow. Meaning that, as I do this computation in my head, that would mean that you would have, hopefully by the end of this year, a full roughly 2 years worth of college credit, not just to a dual enrolled college in Louisiana, but to any college in this country, which is an incredible accomplishment. And to me signifies, it's important, of course, for Adele and his family, but and Baton Rouge Magnet High, but to me it signifies that all young men and women in our state have opportunity, have life opportunity that our public schools have given them the opportunity to achieve, that's there for them to take advantage of. And I thank you on behalf of our entire state for achieving what you've achieved. And I'd like to invite Principal McCann as well as Adele, if you would come down and join President Romer and myself and other BESE members on the whatever this area is called. Thank you.
What's that?
He likes to bring that theory over here.
Thanks again.
You should have your superintendent here.
Congratulations again. I want to say we offered to put this on the end of the agenda so they could sit here for a long time and miss school, but they said no, we got to get back to class. So we appreciate it and congratulations to you.
Mr. Romer?
Yes, Mr. Lee.
I'd like to make a comment, if I may, about the magnet school. When I first became superintendent in Caddo Parish, I was most impressed with Baton Rouge Magnet High. And I got the principal to agree to be our consultant. And I told him I want a school exactly like the one you got, except better. So I said, I want you to correct all the things you would have corrected if you were starting all over again.
Sure.
But that school in Caddo has been a shining star, still is today. And that's been 25 years ago.
Yeah.
That Magnet High School works. The concept works. It's all, the one in Caddo is patterned after the one in Baton Rouge. And it's an excellent program.
I want to thank you for starting that. I come from your area of the state and went to school in your area, and Caddo Magnet, certainly a great school, and thank you for starting that, and congratulations to Baton Rouge Magnet and those students again. Appreciate your comments, Mr. Lee. I'd like to recognize Carolyn Hill, who also had someone I believe she wanted to recognize, and we'd like to take a moment to do so.
Yes, good morning. It's an honor to recognize the next individual that's present here today. Myself, Lottie Beebe, and Jim Garvey had the opportunity to participate in an award ceremony to pending the superintendent of a program that is really needed in the Baton Rouge area. And so I'd like for Mr. McCaleb Henderson, who is the superintendent of the Community Association of Underprivileged Students, to stand, please. This gentleman, let's give him a round of applause. This gentleman has been working tirelessly with his board to come up with programs within EBR to help our students with tutorial programs to help them with reading, math skills, and also to enhance their enrichment recreation as well. So I'd just like to thank you for your hard work. But not only that, we also had the opportunity to have the president of Tennessee State University and the vice president of the sorority of Alpha Kappa Alpha to participate and to also give words of encouragement to our students, but not only our students, those board members, and to Superintendent McCaleb. So I just thank you, and if there's anything that I can do as your BESE representative moving forward, I'll be glad. So thank you once again.
I'd like to ditto what Ms. Hill just stated, and I want to say I met this gentleman I think a couple of weeks ago. I appreciate the invitation, but he is you are very impressive, a go-getter, I mean, a very innovative, and I love that limousine and that chauffeur. Just a little inside joke, but very impressive young man.
Thank you, Dr. Beebe.
And I wish him the best in his future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you, Caleb, for being here today and for what you do. Next item.
Item 6, Board Committee Reports. 6.1, Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee. Ms. Bradford.
On behalf of the Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 17 and 19 through 21, noting that motions 16 and 17, 20 and 21 are notices of intent, and pulling motion 18, which is on page 11.
Second.
So there is a motion and there's a second. And we have, so is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll go to item 18, I believe, that was pulled. Ms. Bradford?
I was informed that that was pulled.
Okay.
Which item is that?
18. I mean, page
Dr.
11.
Beebe, I believe.
Oh, yes. Okay, I did. This is the early child care?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, item. I do recognize that we had extensive discussion yesterday, and you know, the two major concerns were the professional development and the teacher-student ratio. I do applaud Dr. Moranti. You know, I woke up this morning 4:30, and I thought, you know, she presented an opportunity to us, and I think as we heard the discussions and the concerns, the challenges that would be presented to many of the child care providers relating to the professional development. I know some indicated that they're concerned about the cost and then the additional hours that they would have to pay for their employees to engage in professional development. And I'll be the first to say I embrace quality professional learning. I feel that we should have that in place, that component in place. And then, you know, the amendment offered was to have a directory and to have to ensure that the trainers are in place, they are quality. Again, we did not address as effectively, in my opinion, the concern and the challenges relating to the professional learning. Thinking outside of the box and offering the solution. We heard a teacher testify, a retired teacher testify yesterday in support of reducing teacher-student ratios, and of course even she volunteered to be a part of providing the professional development activities. I know within my district and other school systems, when there are trainings, we have the video equipment, you videotape, and we put them on the district website. I think this is an opportunity for us to achieve this goal so that we would have a uniform and consistent professional learning component while addressing the needs of the child care operators. And I would hope that we would add to, or at least put forth a motion to have these modules, embrace the module recommendation, so those who are challenged, those facilities that are challenged, that they would have these professional learning opportunities available to them. So I would like to put forth that motion, and would hope that I would get a second to have that happen and make it available to our child care providers, because this is a real challenge. Superintendent White, you know, I applaud you for recognizing the challenges of the child care providers, and it was my intent to support fully the LDOE's recommendation. And I know at the last minute there was the proposal for the professional learning. And again, I will say I would be a hypocrite if I said if I voted otherwise. I do embrace quality professional learning, and I think we have an opportunity to address the needs of the child care facilities thinking outside of the box, using Ms. Dr. Moranti's recommendation. So I'm just hoping that I can get a second to that effect.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so there's a second. I'm gonna make this a separate item. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm gonna go ahead and take your motion in the second, but I'm not attaching it to the motion that's currently in place. Okay, so it's related to this item, so I'm going to allow an additional item, which is, I'm going to restate it, that you are requesting that DOE begin developing a professional development set of information that could be made available to early learning centers.
And you know, the child care providers can get together. I know some of them are trained, or they have trainers in place, and they can come together, and we can, you know, we can have those discussions where we can videotape those professional learning activities and then make it available, and then you have that consistency.
Okay, well, so we have a motion by Dr. Beebe. It was actually seconded by Ms. Bradford first. Okay. But I'm going to allow, if I may, I don't know that we briefed the superintendent. Perhaps he can comment as to making sure this is practical, or how he might want to go about doing it.
Here's what I would propose. I think that in yesterday's discussion, we got a little bit caught up between two things that need to be disentangled. One, should there be a mandate on which providers are used? And you settled on yes, and that was the decision. There's a whole, and I think probably more important question, which is the professional development and that whole process done in the correct way? Is it efficient, and is it effective? I think the answer is universally agreed, no. However, that is a much more complicated question than is the first one. In other words, do you do it online? How much does it cost to do it online? We need permission from the administration to contract over $2,000. Who would start this contract? You know, how long would it take? You know, what would the cost of it be for schools or for child care centers and so on? All these things, I think, are not matters of regulation. They're matters of, as Dr. Beebe is raising, just a plan and strategy. I haven't had the time since our meeting last night to go through that and figure that out. But I do agree with what Dr. Beebe is where she's trying to go. I would suggest to you that you require us to come back to you in January with a framework for how we're going to overhaul the professional development and registry process. And then that'll probably include more than what even Dr. Beebe is going for with the online modules. I just need a little bit more time to think about it. So if you require us to come back in January with that presentation, I think that'll probably achieve what you wanted to.
And I think we have an opportunity to be creative through networking, that we could make this work without creating another level of bureaucracy, if you will, to where you have to have someone to monitor. You know, I mean, like I said, districts put videos on their websites. It can be done. Yeah. So if we could have a space on the LDOE website where they can just go and click to the video, and then they could present it, and they have, you know, and of course, someone there at the facility can monitor and ensure that the quality is in place.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's probably some solution that's pretty logical like that. I think I would just like the chance to walk that through and just understand it a little bit more and come back to you and give you a report on it.
I'm amenable to changing this from a part of a directive to a investigation.
So I'm sorry, Mr.
I was going to ask Dr. Beebe if she was okay suggesting to make a motion for the department to bring back to us in January a proposal on how to deal with the professional training element, including the modules and online learning, et cetera.
Yes, I do support it as long as we're trying to work with those providers who are challenged.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Bridget, if we could just circle back with Jenna on that, we will do that. Let me raise just for you a very part of the reason that I think this is so complicated. Clearly, our LA4 centers, for example, have a ton of capacity to help train people. It would be a real mistake not to call on school systems, and it's funny that Dr. Pujo just walked in the room because I would say she's the lead example, but to provide some of this training themselves. And by the way, that could be quite a good thing financially as well as programmatically and for students, for school systems. I just want a little bit of time to work through that issue before I come back to the board on it.
Yes.
I would just add that in my conversations with the early learning centers is that there's probably some of them as well who could provide this. So
Yes, true.
I think that there's, like Dr. Beebe saying, that there's a lot of potential solutions. And so we have increased the hours from 3 to 12, which I know feels like a lot for the early learning centers. And I'm not of the opinion that, like, I want it to be good quality hours, and I'm not so sure that it's even as much of like sitting in a room and listening to somebody as maybe having the opportunity to go and shadow someone who's doing really well.
Yeah.
So if in our pilots we have information of the early learning centers that are having a lot of success, and we can identify who maybe some of these mentor early learning teachers are that could train people coming in. So I think that it's important for us to provide all the support we can, but I also think we need to figure out how to think differently about the support. I mean, we have lessons from professional learning at the K-12 level that we need to apply here, and I appreciate you guys looking at this from a comprehensive perspective and coming back with a plan that addresses all of those things and thinks about what kind of opportunities we should encourage people to do and how we may, from this standpoint, facilitate that kind of thing.
No, I think that's right, and I think January is a good timeline. I think that just to call on that for a second, I would like to make this a deeper discussion than the regulation maybe led it to be. And there's two reasons why. The research says, and Mr. Lee, you and I were just talking about TAP, the research is very clear that when you look at what Oklahoma has done, when you look at what the city of Boston has done, the reason that their quality is so high is their coaching model. Their selection of master educators and the model that they use for coaching is, by research, this is NYU research, the distinguishing factor in the quality of their early childhood programs. And then you've got this question of, it's pretty evident that across Head Start, child care, and pre-kindergartens, there are probably great mentor potentials. And there are probably somewhere in the mix, Ascension or anywhere else, there's a leader who can coordinate it. The problem right now is that there's no one officially tapped in the law to oversee that process. And so there are places like Ascension where I think Patrice has, by just virtue of her extraordinary leadership, has gotten people on board. That's not the case right now in most parishes where people are turning to one source of professional support. And so I just want a little bit of time to think through it rather than just giving you an answer that, yes, we'll do video modules, which I think is a good idea. I just don't think it's the whole ball of wax.
Okay.
So, Dr. Beebe, are you comfortable with amending your motion to read for the superintendent to return to us in January? Okay.
Yes.
And Ms. Bradford, you're okay with that?
Yes.
So there is a motion and a second. Is there any objection to that motion? No. Hearing none, so moved. We now need to deal with item 18. Can we have a motion to approve item 18 as an NOI?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Motion by Ms. Bradford, seconded by Mr. Lee. Is there any objection? Hearing.
I think we have a comment card on this item.
She did not want to speak. Unless, is she okay? You okay? Okay. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Next item is item 6.2, Administration and Finance Committee. Mr. Lee.
On behalf of the Administration and Finance Committee, I move approval of items 1 through 20 and Globo.
There's a motion to approve items 1 through 20, and it's seconded by Mr. Garvey. Is there any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Item 6.3, Committee of the Whole, RSD Matters Only, Administration and Finance Committee. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, on behalf of the Committee of the Whole, Administration and Finance Committee, I move to approve items 1 through 7, pulling motion 8.
There's a motion to approve items 1 through 7, pulling item 8. Is there a second for that motion? There is a second. Is there any objection to approving items 1 through 7? Hearing none, so moved. Item 8.
Okay, on motion, item 8 reads as follows. On motion of Ms. Bophy, seconded by Mr. Garvey, the Committee of the Whole, Administration and Finance Committee recommends that the Board, A, receive the report regarding meetings and the community engagement process concerning the future use and control of the John McDonough facility, and B, direct the State Superintendent of Education to issue a request for proposals for the purpose of operating the John McDonough facility.
Who requested the
I
pull?
did.
Dr. Beebe, I'll recognize you as you wanted this item pulled.
Okay, and Mr. Romer, I don't want to be contentious, but just to say publicly that, you know, as a board member, and I've had this experience before, I did request a specific item to be included on the agenda, and I do have the documentation. It was submitted to Ms. Davis November 14th, that we would have a discussion of the Committee of the Whole's action relative to approving and proceeding with the request for proposals seeking an operator for John McDonough High School. And I even I did provide supporting documentation, and of course you weighed in and said that it was unnecessary because I would have the opportunity through this item to address my concerns. But what I want you to understand is that this particular item in New Orleans during the Committee of the Whole meeting, it was just to receive a report. And as I understand it, and there were officials from the Orleans Parish School Board, some were out of state, some did not attend the meeting because they did not anticipate that there would be action that would proceed with the requests for proposals. Again, Ms. Kira Orange-Jones, as the representative of that district, she did charge the Miss Brenda, what is Miss Brenda's last name? Square. She did charge her, as I can appreciate it, to represent the community through engagement, being involved. There were, as I can appreciate it, a number of meetings, and then there was a chastisement, if you will, and a statement that it was a conflict of interest on her part. And I don't think that that is indeed accurate, but the action taken during this meeting, as I can appreciate it, is it came before the opinion that we were seeking from the Attorney General. And I can appreciate the Attorney General's responsibility is to render an opinion. But again, you know, these people, as I can appreciate it in my conversations with them, they were hopeful that they would have the John McDonough High School returned to the Orleans Parish School Board. And it's so evident to me and to many others that this was not, I mean, the intent was not necessarily to have an outcome other than to have another charter operator involved with John McDonough. And I think it's unfortunate, and there is distrust among the board, and there's distrust. I think maybe just a lack of respect in many instances. That's my opinion. You know, these people are very compassionate. They are close to the situation. They have children. They want choice, and I don't think it's the choice is being given to them. There's an opportunity for the Orleans Parish School Board, in my opinion, to think outside of the box and to John McDonough High School, as I can appreciate it, is the property of the Orleans Parish School Board, and it's the opportunity for Orleans Parish School Board leadership to implement something, an innovative program, and get things going, and we're not being fair to that community. But again, I wanted to make that point. On another matter, there was a young man, a student, who testified about his experience in a charter school. He relocated from Lafayette Parish, a very articulate young man. His choice is to be enrolled in an F school, as he communicated. And since that time, he has been bullied. It's indirectly, I found out that he no longer attends the charter school that he was assigned to, and maybe arrangements, the way to correct the problem was to enroll him in another charter, which is an F school. And this is not addressing the problem. We're not fixing the problem. Yet we have an A district. The Orleans Parish School Board is an A district, and we're denying the Orleans Parish School Board the possession of that facility and the opportunity to develop that facility into a model program. And so I felt I had a responsibility to address this matter. And again, you know, you may not agree with me, but when we talk about choice, then we should deliver choice, and not when it's convenient to our philosophies.
Appreciate your comments, Dr. Beebe. If I may quickly address those issues, only for the sake of the board knowing about the agenda item that you requested, because it's always been my practice to allow any board member to add an item to the agenda. I've always done that. I've never denied a member that opportunity. Your particular agenda item, though, and you and I discussed this, I'm not trying to be argumentative, I want to make sure everybody understands why it's not on the agenda, was to argue the merits of the motion, the germaneness of the motion that was made at the RSD meeting. And the only time you can actually argue the motion itself is at the moment of the motion. And there's several different ways to do that, but you can't argue that the motion was out of order after the fact. You have to argue that then. So it was only a technical reason, but I did want to make it clear that I did identify on this agenda a place where you could make your argument. So I was not trying to keep you from making your argument. Just your motion itself that you wanted was out of order. So I appreciate your comments, and I want you to understand. And I think we had an email exchange and a phone call exchange of that. So, secondly, real quickly, you mentioned the young man that testified. I just want this board to know, and I've had several board members call and ask about that situation. So I want to give the board members credit for doing that. We do listen and we do care. I want you to know that the next day I drove from Baton Rouge to that school myself and wanted them to know how seriously we took the testimony, how seriously this board took the testimony. I want you to know that. So I appreciate you bringing it up. Hopefully those issues will be addressed appropriately. If they're not addressed appropriately, then there'll be action taken. But I want you to know I didn't bring a bunch of people with me. I wanted them to know personally how much every board member, how seriously every board member took that testimony. And I would say that of this school and any other school, quite frankly, is that we take those issues very seriously. And I think we're acting appropriately on that matter, and I think we'll have more information in that regard. So,
well, I would like to, since you said it, I would like to have an update, because I don't know if this young man is in school. Like I said, I heard it indirectly, and as I can appreciate it, he's not in school.
Why don't I ask the superintendent, not now, but if you would provide a report to the board members, an update, and if we need to have that item on the January agenda, we can. But for information purposes right now, if you could follow up with the board in regard to that issue. Yes, Ms. Hill.
I just wanted to inform the board, I've been in contact with the grandmother, which she's called me on numerous occasions. I didn't know you visit the school, but however, what I do know from the grandmother and the young man and his mother's statement is that once they found out that he came to the board meeting and he presented his case, that he began to have more issues at the school with the staff. Mm-hmm. So the grandmother decided to pull him out of school, which he had been out of school for a week and a half. When I spoke to the grandmother on on Monday when she called, he was still not in school. Mm-hmm. And so I told her that we have to get this young man in school. He should not be sitting out of school.
I agree.
I know she had been in contact with RSD. She gave me a list of schools. I had Ms. Davis to look up the schools for me to identify what the letter grade of the school at that current time. So I recommended her to enroll him at Sophie B. Wright charter school, because all the schools that was on the list were failing schools. Mm-hmm. And so I just want us as a board to be aware that number one, he's in school, but number two, that because a student comes to BESE, no administrator, teacher, principal should have a student so furious or intimidated by them that the grandmother feels that she has to pull him out of school for safety reasons. Mm-hmm. So I do want you to know that transpired after you went to, I didn't know you went, but that transpired afterwards.
I appreciate that report. We do have a speaker on this item that was pulled, actually two speakers. I want to give them a chance. We did, I don't believe Mr. Smith was at the RSD meeting in New Orleans. I can't recall. I'm certainly going to allow him to give testimony. And Mr. Goodwin, you were there, but again, since there's only a few comment cards, I will allow comment and ask you both to come forward. Stan Smith and Walter Goodwin.
Good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a few comments. I'm Stan Smith, Interim Superintendent of the Orleans Parish School Board, and unfortunately I was not able to make the meeting in New Orleans due to a conflict, and our board president also got called out of town on a family matter, and he was not able to make the meeting. I appreciate you pulling the item, and would appreciate a reconsideration of giving the Orleans Parish School Board the authority to make the decision on this school. We had held a number of community meetings through the ad hoc committee, and the intent of the community was clear that they wanted the Orleans Parish School Board to, to have the opportunity to operate this school and have control of this school, and that was, clear from the community meetings that were held that was the desire of the community, and that's also the desire of the Orleans Parish School Board. And I'll also cover just briefly, and I have a comment card on the resolution that's coming up, but it's basically to the same point around at what point do these schools, when they're closed, no longer become failing schools. In this case, this school was operated as a direct run school. It was converted to a charter, then it was closed. Similar situation with Sarah Reed, operated as a direct run school and then closed. And at some point in there, you have to make when is it no longer a failing school, and when does it come back to the authority of the local school board? And that's the heart of our Resolution 3114 that your board will be receiving later today. Is we believe when a school is closed that it's no longer a failing school, and it should come back to the authority of the Orleans Parish School Board in terms of what decisions are made with respect to new schools in the city. And I would like to add, we've had a good working relationship with the Recovery School District in terms of assignment of school facilities, and we try to work with them, and we will continue to do that. This is one of those where we think we're not happy with the decision that's rendered, but to the point of closing the schools. When Future News Now was closed, when Sarah Reed was closed, we gave the students from those schools priority admission into our direct run schools through the one-out process. And we did that because they're Orleans Parish students. and we have an obligation to Orleans Parish students to serve those students. We don't we don't get into where those students came from. Did they come from a closed school? Did they come from a failing school? We took those students and we willingly accept them into our school system and into our schools to try to provide them with a good education. We're proud of the fact that we're the #2 district in the state, and of the success that we've had. And we would like the opportunity to continue to prove our worth through having the opportunity to take responsibility for John McDonough.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate your question or your comments. Mr. Goodwin. And please state your name again. I know we're familiar, but just for the record.
Good morning, Mr. Roma, members of the board, Mr. White. I was at that meeting, and from that meeting, the ad hoc committee, John McDonough Steering Committee, also was blindsided because we had no idea what was coming, because that was not on the agenda. When we first started this process, I said that I did not believe in this process because I knew that the process was going to be unfair. And as stated earlier, it has been an unfair process. From that meeting, and first of all, I want to thank Dr. Beebe and Ms. Hill for their tenacity and for their continuous support of the students of New Orleans. And on the other side, Ms. Orange Jones and Ms. Moranti, I'm hurt because Ms. Jones, you are my representative, and Ms. Moranti, you are a professor at a university in New Orleans, Zev University, which is a black university. However, when Ms. Hill on that day talked about the plight of the students with the morning, getting up early in the morning, going to school, coming back in the evening late, and all of the stuff that the parents had to go, you came up with something that, why would she play a card? If anything came out of that, Ms. Moranti, it made me look at you as being, you bringing up the race issue made me look at you as a racist. Because why would that come out when somebody is only speaking on behalf of the children in a community, when you getting up you wouldn't have your children to get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock and go stand out there for a bus and come back in the evening? We've been disrespected as a community. There's been no truth, no justice given to this community. There's no fairness. You came in that night and you acted like bullies, thugs. And you talk about the children in the community, but that's the way you acted. You perpetrated a fraud on this community because you said that this would be a fair and open process, and it has not been from day one. I didn't believe it. Ms. Jones, you gave us a directive, told us to go back and do all of this, and we jumped through those hoops to get all of that done.
Mr. Goodwin, that's been 3 minutes. I'm going to ask you to wrap up when you can. Thank you.
I understand. But it's the failure of this board to recognize our humanity. We have no choice. The only choice we have is the RSD. You give us no other choice. And I just want to say in closing that there is no trust. And you talk about you're waiting on an opinion from the Attorney General, but you make the decisions all the time. Mr. Roma, this board has a decision to do anything that it wants because it is the authority. Anything that the RSD does, they only bring a recommendation, and you as the board give the approval or not approval. So there is no need for an Attorney General opinion. You have the right to make a decision whether or not this school goes back to the Orleans Parish School.
Appreciate your comments, Mr. Goodwin. Dr. Moranti.
Sir, I make no apology.
I know you don't.
But I'm also very, very proud to be at the only Catholic black institution in the country. And my comment was, don't diffuse the issue. When Ms. Hill said they were children that looked like her, because those children don't look like me, I don't have the same passion, I don't have the same commitment. That's hurting our children in New Orleans. I absolutely have that commitment, and I will do everything. I'd rather see children bused to a high-performing school than to walk to a failing school, and that was my intent. You can call me whatever you want. You can call me whatever you want, but those that know me know my commitment, and nobody knows it better than Willie Zanders, and he knows I will fight for that. They don't look like me. That does not reduce my passion for wanting the best for them. And I will work towards that. This is not a race issue. This is a policy issue that we as this board must work diligently to change. And I immediately wrote to Mr. Dobard, and I said, I want the impact of what it's like for those children who cannot walk to their school because they're failing schools. I want to know that. I want to know where our children are being bused. I want to know what can be done and better done. I respect you, sir. I do. And I've heard you at our meetings, and you are passionate. But I can match your passion, and I will do it. That is my commitment as a BESE member, and I will stand behind it. I don't want this to be a race issue. I want this to be a justice issue, and I want it to be settled, and I want it to be settled through policy, through the right channels. And if you help me with that, we can do it together. I know we can.
Everything you said, Ms. Moran, but you were the one brought up the race.
Mr. Goodwin, if I may,
Mr. Goodwin. There was no issue about race at that meeting. You brought that issue.
But when Ms. Hill said it was the children that looked like her, it was.
Please.
And I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming, Mr. Goodwin. I appreciate your comments, Dr. Moranti. I appreciate your comments. There are no other comment cards on this issue. We need to... okay, Mr. Buckley, you actually put a different... Okay, then I'll recognize you now, Mr. Buckley. And Mr. Buckley, if I may, I really appreciate you testifying and your passion. I hope we can, and I appreciate the give and take that just happened, but I want to keep you to 3 minutes, and hopefully we can all have a good conversation.
Okay, Frank Buckley, C6. I came here today with the intention of not even making a comment. But then when I heard the other comments that were made, I felt impelled to do so. I want to thank Ms. Lottie Beebe for putting it on and bringing it up. I want to thank you, Carolyn Hill, for doing the follow-up. And like Mr. Goodwin is saying, why are we thanking them and not thanking you? That's what's hurting our community. You represent us, not them. And when this kid, and that's not the first time that happened to a kid that testified before BESE as to how they're being treated at RSD. When the kids from Reed talked about how they was being bullied and harassed and wasn't being properly educated at a board meeting in New Orleans, the next day Patrick Dubois was walking in their class harassing them. When the kids from Cohen stood up, the next day they went back being harassed. When the kids from John Mack stood up, the next day they went back, they were harassed. When the kids from Carver, Cy Academy Carver stood up, the next day they was being suspended. So that's why the kids don't want to say what's going on in RSD, because when they say what's going on in RSD, they're being harassed. Now, Ms. Miranda, I understand your passion, but our kids are being bused from 5 o'clock in the morning to go to another failing school. Just about all the RSD schools are failing. That's why we're saying, the community, we don't want no part of RSD. They're a failing district. They've been in New Orleans for 9 years, which means majority of the students that are going to high school were probably educated in the recovery school district. And those high school teachers are finding out that these kids can't read or do math on the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade level, and they're sitting in high school. And a lot of them have failed the LEAP test in the 4th grade and the 8th grade. Never passed. But they've been moved on to high school. So we are saying we had enough with the Recovery School District. Give John McDonald. RSD ran it as direct one school, they failed. They picked the charter. John White picked Steve Barr from California. He took the score from a 70 SPS score, brought it down to a 9. John White came in December, told the teachers they was going to close it down, and they just closed it down. And now we saying, give us the school. McDonald 35 don't have any space for students. The kid Ms. Hill was talking about, the parent tried to put him in Warren Easton, another Orleans Parish school, no seats in the school. Try to get him back in McMahon, another Orleans Parish school, no seats in the schools. They're being forced to stay in the Recovery School District. And all we're saying is give us an opportunity to give our kids another Orleans Parish school to go to. Then they brought up a plan. Nobody told them to create a plan, but we created a plan. Now there's whispers about they're going to take McMahon out of McMahon and put him into John McDonald. And we're trying to figure out, when did that come about? We're meeting tonight with the alumni and parents from McMahon to discuss how that came about. So all we're saying, you know, we say it's not a race, but that's what it looks like. European American students are not going through what those African American students are going through with the Recovery School District. So we don't want to play the race card, but that's what it looks like. It's African American kids that are getting up 5 o'clock in the morning, standing at the bus 5:30 in the morning, being bused to a failing RSD school. And we're saying 9 years of that is enough. And then they talk about the money. They can't even tell you where the money is.
Mr. Buckley, if you could wrap it up, that'd be great. That's
I will wrap it up. And
Thank
again,
you.
I had no intentions on speaking. I just was coming to videotape and hear some comments. But after hearing those 2 comments, I felt compelled to speak. Thank you for your time. And again, we have had enough of the Recovery School District. It is a failing school. They have failed our children.
I appreciate
They have
your
more
testimony.
children going to jail than they are going to college. Thank you.
Appreciate your testimony. Members, we have an item that is yet to be approved. This is an item that was just pulled, item 8. Can we have a motion to approve item 8?
I have moved to approve item 8 as written.
And there's a second by motion by Mr. Garvey, second by Ms. Bophy. Is there an objection to item 8?
I object.
Item 8 is the action that was taken at the RSD. Okay, Dr. Beebe and Ms. Hill object. Any other objection? Item passes. Next item.
The next item is item 6.4, Committee of the Whole RSD Matters Only, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, on behalf of the Committee of the Whole, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move approval of motions 1 through 3.
We have a motion to approve items 1 through 3. Is there a second? There's a second by Dr. Moranti. Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Next item is item 6.5, Educator Effectiveness Committee. Ms. Bophy.
On behalf of the Educator Effectiveness Committee, approve items 1 through 12, noting that 4 is a notice of intent.
We have a motion to approve items with noting that number 4 is an NOI. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second by Ms. Bradford. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Item 6.6, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, on behalf of the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move for approval of motions 1 through 10.
There's a motion for approval of 1 through 10. There's a second by Ms. Bophy. Is there any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Item 7, Board Advisory Council reports. 7.1 on page 1, Non-Public School Council, and 7.2, Superintendent's Advisory Council on page 4. The recommendation is to receive the minutes and approve a tentative agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Bradford, second by Mr. Lee. Is there any objection to that motion? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Item 8.1 on page 7, receive resolution number 3114 from the Orleans Parish School Board requesting the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Recovery School District to cease, discontinue, and refrain from creating new public schools in the parish of Orleans.
Do I have a motion to receive?
I move.
Dr. Beebe motions to receive. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Hill, second. Mr. Smith, I know you did turn in a card previously. Thank you. Dr. Beebe.
Did we receive the expedited opinion from the Attorney General?
We've not received that yet.
Well, I guess perhaps we need to
I'll be glad to follow up
explore what
again.
expedited means.
I'll be glad to follow up again, Dr. Beebe. There's a motion to receive this item. There's a second. Is there any objection to receiving the item? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
The next item is item 9.1 on page 10. Oops. I'm sorry.
8.2. Receive the resolution from St. Tammany Parish School Board concerning Common Core state standards and park testing.
I move.
Dr. Beebe moves to receive the item.
A second.
Is a second by Ms. Hill. Is there any objection to receiving the item? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
All right, now we're ready for item 9.1, page 10, consideration of approving new course offerings fiscal year 14-15 for the Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts, LSMSA. The recommendation is to approve.
Move approval.
Move approval by Mr. Lee, second by Mrs. Bofi. Are there any questions? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Next item is 9.2, consideration of the appointment of the BESE Executive Director.
Mr. Lee.
Mr. President, I move that we name Mrs. Shan Davis as Director, Executive Director for the BESE Board effective December 21.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Lee, second by Ms. Bradford. I'd like to recognize Mr. Lee for comment.
Mrs. Davis has been an employee of the board for several years. Seems to relate well to people. They're well qualified. I think she will be an objective staff member, and I think it's just a right decision to make.
Dr. Beebe?
And I concur with that assessment, Mr. Lee. I've had the pleasure of working with Ms. Shan, and she has been a great asset to the department, to BESE, and so I feel that, well, I know that we have made a great choice with Ms. Shan Davis. So we welcome you, Ms. Shan, as our new exec. Well, once the motion is made, and I'm hopeful that we'll get the votes. But I also want to thank Ms. Kim for her role as the interim executive director. So
I'd like to echo those thoughts. First, I want to thank Kim for taking on a task that nobody wanted to take and having to speak to me more frequently. But I really appreciate you stepping in. And in fact, we had a number of issues you had to deal with, and you, as usual, did an excellent job. And I appreciate you doing that. I want to first see if we can get unanimous approval for the motion. Is there any objection? Hearing none, so approved. I want to congratulate you, Ms. Davis, very much. And I want to thank you for going through the process that we had set up, and you did so very well, and you were approved by every member, and appreciate you doing that, and look forward to working with you, and congratulations. Next item.
Okay. The next item is item 9.3, consideration of executive session relative to litigation concerning PB by and through his next friend, Cassandra Berry, et al. Versus John White, Louisiana State Superintendent of Education, in his official capacity, Louisiana Department of Education, and Louisiana Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, United States District Court for the Eastern District of Louisiana, civil case number 10CV-04049, Section A.
So I need a motion to go into executive session. It will take a roll call vote, and we'll take 2/3 vote. It's a motion by Ms. Bradford, second by Mr. Garvey. We will have to, it's a 2/3 affirmative vote of the members present in order to go into executive session. When we have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Dr. Beebe?
Yes.
Dr. Beebe votes yes. Ms. Bofi?
Yes.
Ms. Bofi votes yes. Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford votes yes. Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey votes yes. Mr. Gio is absent. Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Hill votes yes. Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lee votes yes. Dr. Moranti? Dr. Moranti is absent. Ms. Orange Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Orange Jones votes yes. Ms. Smith is absent. Mr. Romer?
Yes.
Mr. Romer votes yes. The motion passes.
Before we step out, members, let me inform the public that there will be no votes taken while in executive session. If any votes are required, the votes will be made in public. Thank you. Thank you, board members. We will need a motion to reconvene into regular session. Motion by Ms. Bradford, second by Mr. Lee to reconvene. And there's a second. Any objection? No, hearing no objection. Now we're back in regular session. I would like to ask for a motion regarding the matter discussed in executive session. Ms. Bradford.
I move to approve the settlement authority to the Department of Education.
There's a motion to give settlement authority to the Department of Education, is seconded by Mr. Lee. Is there any objection to that motion? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
That concludes the agenda.
That concludes our agenda. We are adjourned. I want everyone to have a happy and safe holiday season. Thank you very much.